Welcome to our webinar, Standardizing Project Portfolio Reporting, Eliminating Errors, Improving Governance, and Ensuring Accuracy. If you enjoy this topic, please explore our YouTube channel for more videos and follow us on LinkedIn to be in the know for event announcements and speaking engagements. Presenting today's discussion is OnePlan's Jim Patterson.
And welcome everybody. This concept of standardized project portfolio reporting is a key one because in many cases, it's the primary reason people pull together a project management office or a PMO. It's increasingly more challenging these days in our distributed environments with a lot of different methods and needs that are going across the organization, and also trying to coordinate a lot of cross-functional transformation types of efforts that are going on within the organization. So let's talk about how we can improve this and overcome the barriers to making these things happen. So why is this important? Well, standardized project portfolio reporting, offers benefits and advantages both strategically and operationally that can help us make better decisions and maximize the value of our projects or the value of the things we actually choose to work on. So it's extremely important in this regard because it's fundamental to making sure we're doing the right things. Now, some of the things that are important is we want to improve our decision making by having reliable and consistent data and be able to compare things on a comparable basis across all the initiatives that are competing for our time and our resources and our dollars. Enhance transparency and visibility to make sure that everybody who needs to have it, all stakeholders have the visibility they need when they need it, and prevent surprises or missing the opportunity to do course correction. Increase efficiencies and reduce manual effort. We'll talk a little bit later that people are expending inordinate amounts of manual time today doing these processes and generating the reporting, and we want to reduce that so that we can become more effective and do more effective things than just crunching data. And then better risk management. If we have visibility into the things that we need when we need it, we potentially can mitigate those risks or maybe even avoid them biting us at any given point in time. And then in this day and age, strategic alignment is important. So stronger alignment with the business goals of the organization, making sure that not only the things we work on are aligning with that, but then the KPIs and the indicators on how we're doing on these things, we can evaluate and measure those things to see if our goals are at risk. And the more effective resource allocation. If we can have reporting standardized that helps us track resource utilization and needs and capacity across all things that we're doing, we have a better job of putting our resources on the right things. And then easier stakeholder communication. Having this stuff as a natural output of the process makes it easier for us to communicate with each other, especially cross-functionally. And it also gives us a common lexicon and way that we can evaluate things as we report on them. Compliance and auditing, just making sure that we're doing things right. And we don't want to get caught with our, caught asleep, let's put it that way, when it comes to being compliant, especially in our compliance-driven types of organizations. And also just gives us a fundamental basis for continuous improvement and benchmarking. It gives us the data that we need to benchmark and see how we can improve over time. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's just some of the key things that are important as to why we want to have some standardized reporting and get our handle on this. Now, there are barriers in organizations, and organizations still today struggle with attaining this standard project portfolio reporting. And some of the common barriers are lack of unified data and systems, different teams using different tools, inconsistent data collection, reporting formats, or even the data points that are being collected. Just overall human nature and resistance to change. Oftentimes people have their own tools and their methods that they prefer that they've been building, and things like spreadsheets and other things like that they're reluctant to let go of, and we have to overcome that. Inconsistent metrics and KPIs. Maybe different parts of the organization are measuring different things or not measuring things very well at all. It makes it difficult to align those things across the portfolio, so it requires change in the organization to kind of cross that barrier. Data quality issues. Oftentimes, if we have very manual efforts, the data can be stale, incomplete, and it really reduces, even if we mash up the data, the effectiveness of the reporting that we generate. Stakeholder misalignment. Sometimes, executive PMOs and the project teams themselves have different reporting needs, and sometimes it makes it difficult to provide standard formats that meet the needs of everyone. And then there's lack of governance and ownership that happens, that without clear accountability for maintaining reporting standards and the expectations that are set of the minimum data points that we need to deliver to the organization and the stakeholders, we got to overcome that so that, yes, we want to provide latitude as needed for the different types of things that are being done, but we have to have some common standards. And then scalability challenges. People get comfortable reporting in their own little worlds. And the thing is, what works for them in their own sphere may not work when we go broader across the organization. And then tool integration issues. If an organization relies on a multiple set of project management platforms or tools that are being used, it can really lead to a siloing, which we'll talk in a little bit later, that leads to dysfunction. On top of that, the needs of the different parts of the organization and the complexity of the work and the rigor that's required may vary. So there's different tiers of portfolio and work management. There's some simple collaborative work management where people need to work on tasks collaboratively, and the portfolio management rigor that they need may not be as robust as in some parts of the organization. And there's a need for some of this, and it goes on in the organization. And then there's the PMOs that just want portfolio visibility, some governance and some project execution, and that's fine if that's all that's required for parts of the organization. But in this day and age, people are moving more to strategic portfolio management with full strategic alignment and good cross-functional orchestration of enterprise-wide initiatives, especially in this age of business transformation and digital transformation. And the idea is, how do we get all this together? And we're going to talk today about how OnePlan supports all these tiers and hybrids in parallel and simultaneously with each other, with or without other solutions or tools in the mix. Now, this concept of proliferation of tools, let's talk about some of the root causes of some of the barriers that we talked about in the slides prior. This isn't just an example of a mapping of tools that an organization that we worked with told us that they were using for the different disciplines down the left of demand management, portfolio management, project management, and across the different functional areas. Let's just say this wasn't even a complete list of the different tools that were being used. Now, the idea of being able to aggregate and bring the data together from all these different sources and all these different tool sets and different silos of information was a challenge. And at best, it's at least manual or semi-manual. There's also the whole idea of how we're doing portfolio management. There's the folks that are still doing traditional portfolio management as we've done for over the last couple of decades, which tends to be more governance and traditional governance and waterfall related. Many folks have embarked upon agile transformations and are using more agile methods, right? Some get all the way over there, but for the most part, most people don't. Even if you go and get to the full agile transformation, that may take years. In the meantime, you're going to be in this kind of hybrid or adaptive mode where you may have mixed methodologies, mixed tools, and hybrids, not only just in your transition, but maybe, as the analysts are saying, in steady state moving forward, because not all work maybe lends itself to an agile approach to actually executing it. So the different methodologies and executions are in there, right? It's some people are doing agile, some people are doing waterfall, some people are doing hybrids, or even cherry-picked versions of the things that they find that work out of these different methods or frameworks. So as teams execute, right, they can execute, maybe how they need to with these different tools, but leadership still needs the visibility, and the data to make decisions. They need decision support. So whether you're using a different iterative or waterfall methodologies and in different tool sets at the team level, right? Leadership still needs to see the aggregate up here and they need to see it in a way that makes sense for them, that's viable information for them as a basis for good decision making. I mean, in the example I talked about with agile transformation, even if everybody's using an agile methodology and maybe only a handful of different tools to do that, they may be looking at data points at the team level, on the execution side, like burn ups and burn downs and velocity charts, where leadership is still wanting the language of business and financials and deliveries and all the different things and indexes that they might want to see. And the idea is we got to meet the needs of all these different audiences if we're going to do this successfully. Now, taking this another step further, in another level of maturity, strategic alignment has become very important in the project and portfolio management world, bordering on full strategic portfolio management. But even if we don't go full SPM or strategic portfolio management, aligning what we're doing with the corporate strategies, the objectives of our business leaders who are setting the course for where the organization wants to go, needs to be aligned with those that are executing the change or executing and delivering projects and initiatives within the organization. If we're not doing that, we could be wasteful, we could be missing the boat, and we can be losing competitive advantage if we're not aligned well and communicating this aligning well across the entire organization. So strategic portfolio management has more dimensions to consider. Yes, there is the alignment of the strategy. So business leaders put together the strategy, whether they're objectives and key results or OKRs or some other method, that needs to be communicated across the organization. And then the projects that we execute on, the execution leaders, whether they be professional services, more agile efforts, more product development, more traditional, projects that are internal within the organization for IT, for example, those items that we are executing on and the ones that come into our pipeline as initiatives or requests for us to consider, they should be aligning with those strategies and for us to be able to do with them at all. And then there's the other dimension in full strategic portfolio management. That's the assets and the technology, the enterprise architecture and the business architecture, the applications, the products, the business capabilities that we have to factor in if we want to be successful and in full alignment on delivering the right things to our stakeholders and our internal and external customers. Now, this fragmentation that I'm kind of talking about here as root cause, it ultimately leads to silos of information. And silos breed increased costs and inefficiencies and less than optimum results. So, information silos require manual mashups of data from multiple tools and data sources. It then requires manual report creation and formatting and updating those each reporting period. There's the packaging and the distribution of the reports to the different stakeholders, duplication of data entry, because many people who are supporting projects in a variety of different tool sets are actually putting the same data in different places. It can be time consuming and prone to errors when we do that, duplication of data. It's disconnected information and difficult to remain accurate and current across the board because people are on different timelines, different timetables. The updates happen on different cadences, etc. And then we end up chasing team members for statuses and updates that they need to put in a variety of different tools or media. And then tracking the completeness and timeliness of submissions gets difficult. Are we really not making progress on the project, or has it just not been updated for a couple of weeks? So, and then the resource planning thing is another piece, that oftentimes people just punt and do this in a spreadsheet off to the side, do some resource capacity planning or headcount planning, and then it's disconnected from the rest of the project and portfolio management data, and it's not in sync with where the reality of those things are as well. So this is just a high level. There's obviously more dysfunction that can happen, but these are some of the ones we see frequently. Now, we're going to talk about OnePlan today, and OnePlan as a platform gives us the ability to do all these things. It's a cloud-based solution delivered from the Microsoft Cloud with all the security and compliance that you would expect from the Microsoft Cloud. We provide pre-built portfolio management and strategic portfolio management solutions, and also the flexibility to configure or build your own solutions within it as well, without writing code. It's all through configuration. We have a connector platform that connects to all these other tools and brings them all together on an automated fashion. So this siloing or fragmentation is now brought together into a common hub within OnePlan. And there's workflows and notifications for process automation that allows us to stay in sync and in communication with each other cross-functionally or up and down the reporting chain. And then dashboards and reports in OnePlan, natural output of the process, right? But we also have an OData feed that can be leveraged by a reporting solution of your choice. Let's say you're using something like a Tableau. We can get that data and be used by Tableau, or even put it into a data warehouse that can be used for other purposes. And then on top of that, for information and reporting, we have an AI assistant built in that allows you to kind of get context and get more analysis out of the data that you have in your reporting. Now, we talked about flexibility, and OnePlan really is designed to give you a single platform for your portfolio leaders across the organization, but have the right balance of governance and flexibility, because there has to be some level of governance to make this work. Now, the uniform governance might happen as a way to do things across the business, and maybe in a smaller mid-sized business, we find that happening often, where let's try to find one way to get this done and let's be consistent. So if we have enterprise level portfolio, enterprise level governance around that on our intake and the things that we work on and the standards and compliance, that may meet the needs for the organization. But even if we're a bigger organization, we still need to have this at some level. But what we also need in many organizations as they get bigger is the need to have specific portfolio areas that give you the flexibility to meet the unique demands of the different parts of the business or the different types of work that's being done. So you can have in OnePlan different areas configured in ways that meet the needs for those specific departments or business units, or maybe even a departmental or a functional PMO that's rolling up into an enterprise PMO. And the idea is that you can meet the needs so that they can do the things that they need to do at that level, but still conform to what the organization needs at that level. And then ultimately, you can have hybrid, where we can have the combination of all these things working together, not only up and down the chain, but so that we can work well cross-functionally in the organization, especially when we're working on those large enterprise-wide initiatives. Now, OnePlan is designed to provide all these capabilities that we talked about, whether it be the strategic planning. There's a facility in OnePlan to do that, in your OKRs, for example. There is some light enterprise architecture so that we can model and capture the data requirements around your applications, your products, your business capabilities, et cetera, and factor those into the mix in your PPM or your strategic portfolio management. Ideation and request, an ideation or request portal that allows people to put ideas in there and they can be vetted and evaluated so that they can be looked at in the context. Are they aligning with the objectives that have been set out by the organization? We get that common visibility right within OnePlan. On the portfolio side, the visibility, and we'll talk about how these are really like living, breathing reports, whether they be more list views, whether they be more board views for the more agile-oriented types of folks, or more roadmap views for maybe more product-oriented type of people. The idea there is that we factor in not only that, but the resource capacity planning and the resource constraints we have. We factor that all in right within the same solution in the context of everything else, not in a separate silo of information. Same thing with financials. And as things change and as conditions evolve, we can actually do what-if scenario modeling that looks at our financial and resource constraints and our ability to deliver and maybe reprioritize based upon new things that come down the pike for us. On the execution side, one of the barriers that we talked about was the proliferation of tools. Well, OnePlan has the ability to do both waterfall planning, both agile planning, and hybrid planning within OnePlan itself. We do not require any other execution tools. But one of the barriers that we talked about is resistance to change and people using tools they already like. Well, OnePlan mitigates that by actually having pre-built connectors to the more popular planning tools that are out there, both on a waterfall basis and an agile basis, so that they can keep working in those tools, but then they will feed the relevant data into OnePlan and roll it up into portfolio for reporting and other purposes. Once again, circumventing the need to fight that battle to take tools out of other people's hands and forcing them to use something else. OnePlan crosses that bridge very nicely. And then even managing things like the issues and risks and changes, because that's part of what we want to report on as well. The resource management on an individual project or initiative basis happens with full resource negotiation between project and resource managers. And then that all feeds into that bigger capacity plan we talked about in the portfolio realm. And ultimately, team members, chasing down people for status, having a central My Workplace where an individual contributor can actually see everything that's been put on their plate and status it all in one place and have it feed back to the appropriate tool sets and the appropriate projects is huge. It saves time, effort, and confusion. If you need to report time against things, whether you're capitalizing labor, charging back internally, or charging to external customers, that's all built into the same context using the same elements within the solution. And then there's the analysis piece that we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about individual project status reports that are natural output of the process, dashboards of a variety of different flavors and levels, the ability to have visualizations, because we have a lot of different dimensions in here, like strategy and enterprise architecture elements and ideas and other things. How do they all interrelate? What's dependent on each other, and what do we need to consider in order to be successful in any of these things? Ultimately, it's all about getting the outcomes we want and doing it with AI as an assistant, and making sure that we're choosing and doing the right work for the organization, but that we also have the ability to do it well and in a streamlined and efficient fashion. The integrations we talk about, those are all pre-built connectors, and the different genres of tools are shown here. The work management or project management tools with the common ones, the agile or software development tools that are out there, your financial and ERP systems, your CRM systems for professional services organizations, IT service management systems, linking to other enterprise architecture solutions, as well as strategic planning solutions, so that we can leverage that stuff all in one hub. Think of OnePlan as the hub that brings this stuff all together. Now, in the aspects of reporting and standardized reporting, OnePlan provides our customers a standard pack of reports that are available to them. There's like 40 to 50 standard reports out of the box. And by no means are you locked into those the way they are, but they give you a great starting point such that you can report at the different levels, but you can modify them as you see fit. The idea here is we get the portfolio level reporting if we want to look at how things are at the aggregate portfolio levels for one or more portfolios. There's the program level, which you might have programs within those portfolios, and you can go another layer deep and look at how we're doing at an individual program level, which is made up of multiple projects and initiatives. And then there's the project level for individual specific projects or initiatives. What are the details or dashboards, and what dimensions do we need to look at that level? So some definite levels of reporting that can meet the needs of different audiences depending on where they sit in the organization. And then different dimensions of this. There's strategy focused reports that focusing on the strategic plan and how we're executing on those things. There's the intake, the ideation, the requests, the innovation stuff that are coming in that we need to vet and talk about, right? As far as deciding what things we're going to say yes to, what things we're going to defer, what things we're going to say no to. Portfolio analysis in general, because there's so many dimensions to look at in a portfolio. But this is just some screenshots of just limited dimensions. Other ones that we have available to us now are, what are reports on resource capacity, on the financials overall within an organization, very detailed project execution pieces of tasks and issues and risks within individual projects, dependencies across the solution, how things align and the associations across them. As I mentioned, the enterprise and business architecture elements, the what if scenario modeling and reporting around that, and more, depending on what we take on and we implement within the OnePlan solution. So once again, very robust reporting, but what the common thread here is that if we take it on and we have the data in the solution, the reporting and the dashboards then become a natural output of the process. It's not a labor-intensive process. We work our project and the data will be there in those reports. Individual projects, I know many customers that, spent hours and hours each week, building status reports and things like static power reports and things like PowerPoints and et cetera, and Word documents. Why not have the format as a standard format across the organization that comes out as a natural output? And then we can add our own narrative and things to it, et cetera. The idea is that we can do that today, and you don't need to spend your time on data crunching. You can spend more time managing your projects and your work and doing more high value activities. And Sophia is there to help. Sophia is our AI assistant. And yes, there's all kinds of things, and you've probably heard a lot of things about the hype of AI and maybe some things in the areas of portfolio management and project management. But when we think about analysis, think about it as a method to augment your reporting, to do potentially more in-depth analysis than maybe we can do with our own human intuition, et cetera, and use that to get information out to help us for decision support. So in the context of the topic today, Sophia can definitely be used in that method. And Sophia is always available in OnePlan. It can use in the context of where we're at. And here we're in the project portfolio, but you can look at the blue circle in the lower right and access Sophia at any given point in time and ask your prompts as you see fit, and get responses and some answers and some analysis and some assistance as you need. So with that, I thought we'd get into a demonstration of these capabilities. And I thought I'd start in the project portfolio. And one of the cool things about this is that we have so much flexibility, and think about some of these views as just living reports that we can drill through at any given point in time. If I look at the portfolio, if you can see a hierarchy here, what we've put in place, and you can make the hierarchy whatever you like for your organization. But we have a hierarchy here where we have a portfolio level, which we have multiple portfolios in this example. There's programs within the portfolios, and then within the programs, there are projects and epics. And for some of the agile projects, we're going down to a feature level within there. But the key is, I think of this as your primary portfolio hierarchy that you have in here with our different plan types that we have. And then as you look in here, what you can see is that we've got a number of different projects and epics, projects being more waterfallish, epics being more agile in the context of the way the data is characterized in here. But also notice that there's icons over to the left here that basically indicate where we're grabbing and integrating data from other tool sets. Whether it be Microsoft Planner, whether it be Smartsheet, whether it be Jira, Microsoft Project on the desktop, whether it be Monday.com, whether it be Azure DevOps, whether it be Asana or Rike. The key is this could all be done in OnePlan, but if you have data and people using other tools that they want to bring that data in, they can use those things with our built-in connectors. So just be aware of that. But for the purposes of reporting, what we have in here is what we call list views, right? And these list views, you can save as many different variations as you want for yourself to go out of the, out of the box, and for more global views and more personal views. But for example, this particular view is very KPI oriented, meaning I've got overall status, I've got schedule health, financial health, effort health, issue health, and I can look at those. And by the way, you can create your own. So the idea is what you see here isn't what you're married to. And these KPIs can either be manually set, or for ones that are more conducive to more formula-driven variances, things like financial health and how much effort we're spending and whether we're ahead or behind schedule, those things can be formula-driven such that they change automatically once they cross certain thresholds. But the key is you choose the columns of data that you want to see. Here's the KPIs and then high-level financial information. Then when we're expected to get this thing and how much of it we're done. All very good as we're looking at this thing. If I want to look at something more financial oriented, for example, and I want to look at something at a program level rather than at the portfolio level, I can go down and look at a program summary and look at the individual programs that I have in here and then look at the elements that are within those programs. Or maybe I want to take more of a financial focus and I want to look at a program financial summary, right? Here it is a more financial focus that I'm going to get through this that basically is going to give me a little more detail about how we're doing on variances and forecasts and actuals, remaining budget, and even comparing it with benefits so that we can calculate things like ROI, right? And then there's things like a schedule summary where if I want to look at this list view at any given point in time and I want to see it in more of a list format, I can go take this and I can go look at it in a variety of ways with timelines. So I can look at it from a more scheduled perspective, aka a little bit of a road mapping and in a Gantt chart type of thing with key milestones indicated in there as well, right? And we can even snapshot data in here such that we can look at things from a trending perspective. So as I'm looking at different data elements that I want to trend, OnePlan has some built-in trending capabilities that allow us to establish visuals on those different trends and how we're doing on the state of the project, the status of the project, and look at the last recent periods or overall trending on things like budget or issues and things like that. So the key there is trending is there so we can snapshot and get that type of information as well. And one of the flexible things that I really like is if I come in here and I just go into a summary view, and in this summary view, it kind of flattens things out, and taking out the primary hierarchy out of the primary view with the, the tree that I showed you initially early on. And then I can look at this any way I like. So for example, if I want to look at this now grouped and summarized by business unit, I now have got everything here grouped and summarized by the different business units. Or if I categorize my projects in certain ways, I can look at the different the different categories like business transformation, compliance, IT. And we can also filter these views by any of the data points that we have in the system. So the key is you have a lot of flexibility in these list views. These are living, breathing reports. The same thing holds true with our board views. The board views give us a more agile approach to this. We have cards, and the cards have the data on those. But for example, I can look at the columns. This one's a column by state, and I don't have any swim lanes, so I can see what's active, what's proposed. I can look and see if I have anything in my backlog that we haven't allocated yet. And I can look at these things in a variety of different ways. I can look at other aspects of here. So if I could say, let me look at board by state, but with an effort constraint in there. And in this particular case, I don't have just dollar constraints, but I'm saying here's the effort or the hours that I have available to me in any of these cases, and do the efforts that I have within the active realm, are they fit within the constraint that I've sent? And by the way, I can move things in and out of active state into proposed state at any given point in time just by drag and drop. These types of views are really good for people that actually want to look at things by cards and be able to move things around for things like program increment planning. I might want to look at something by another thing. If I say goals by program, this is one where we can interject the concept of a swim lane. So for example, I've got the different goals in the columns, Then I've got the swim lanes here are the different goals. So what are, asset replacement goals? What are the brand management goals? And what are the things that we have in there? And when we have any project or effort in here that is, I only see so much data in the cards. I can come in here and look and get to the details around that at any given point in time. I can hover over that to get more details, but if I want to drill in and get more information, I can pop up and ask for all the details around this. And for example, if I want to understand why this is showing up yellow, I can see because it's the financial health. It looks like the schedule and the effort are on track, but the overall status is yellow because the financial health is off and we're spending more on this project than we thought. So once again, the board views are very living, breathing reports, and they're configurable by any of the data points that you have within the system. And the roadmap views, very similar. It's using live data. It's just a different perspective of the same data. And here I've got this group by, or the swim lanes in here, by business unit, and they're color-coded by overall status. But very quickly, I could come in here and I could say, let me do the same thing. Let me look at these things by the category of the project. And maybe it's not the overall status, but I want to see how we're doing on financial health. And I go in there and I want to go look at, now the color coding is by financial health, and I can look at the variety of things that we have there. And once again, I've got this, and we got some things that show the different dependencies that we have in here and what we're related to. So once again, very flexible views and reporting on roadmaps that are a natural output of the process. Now, if I go back to the list view, and I go back to the portfolio summary that's in here, and you can see there's a variety of different portfolios, a variety of different programs, and a variety of different projects and epics and such in there. But for example, yes, I've got explicit data that I'm looking at, and I can make my own assertions and analysis here, right? But for example, what if I wanted to get some context around that, and I wanted to ask Sophia to help me, and I wanted to say something along the lines of, let me start a fresh prompt in here, and then let me go in and say, can you examine the trends and provide a summary of the current state of my portfolios? Because I do have a number of portfolios in here. And so it's going to analyze the different portfolios and give me some analysis based on the data that we have in the system. Because OnePlan is, its AI leverages the data that you have in there, but it doesn't learn from your data. It basically uses it for the purposes of this prompt and this transaction. So now it's giving me analysis for each of the portfolios, the data analytics transformation. I've got the health over there. I've got the effort and issues. I got the budget and benefits. And it's given me a high-level synopsis on each of the portfolios that I can look at. And at the end, it's given me some general observations that we have several portfolios that we have to look at in particular, right? And we need to get some additional analysis on that. And the cool thing in here, you can do a variety of other things. I can say, provide data in a table format, and do this so I have something maybe a little more consumable or deliverable to people that I can then copy and paste or deliver into some other mechanism. So, it'll come in here and it'll look, and now as I come in here, now it's putting all this data into, and I can expand this out, for example, to look at this. And the same data, I'm now getting it, it's actually producing it for me in a tabular format to provide it so it's more consumable for me to deliver to somebody else. So once again, kind of cool stuff that you can use. And any area that you're in OnePlan, Sophia is available for you. Now, on the reporting side, on the dashboards, here at the portfolio level, we have a bunch of standard reports in here that are available to you, and many of them are drill-through reports, so the variations are broad. So as I come in here and I look at the tabs across the bottom about the different portfolio level reports that I have available to me, you can modify these, you can add other ones to the mix if you like. But in this example, I've got a portfolio summary that's basically giving me the health of all the different portfolios, right? I can have basically filters to narrow this down. I could say, just show me the data for this data analytics transformation portfolio, right? Or I could say, let me drill through specifically to that portfolio and take me down to that program level that I have. Now I'm in this data analytics transformation where I now have one singular program that's available within that, and I can look at the program level data, right? And then within that program level data, I can come in here and I can look at things like this overview. I can look at the overall status on the different programs and projects and epics within there. I can look at the financials within there, right? I can even get down to the execution details where I'm looking at things like completed milestones and upcoming and overdue tasks and risks and issues and changes and things like that, all because I have this robust set of reporting that's all intertwined and allows me to go and do those things. The health summary, I showed you a very KPI-oriented view within the portfolio itself, but if you want to communicate reporting out to people that aren't maybe hands-on within OnePlan all the time, the same KPIs are here, but put in report format, so I can leverage this with the addition of how many active issues and risks and changes might be in there. I might look at a timeline. Somebody wants to understand more of a timeline view of our programs and projects as I go through there. More of a schedule summary that we talked about earlier on, where we're looking at the overall schedule on this. Financial summaries, right? So where we're looking at, within this context, what are the financials around this? Or maybe look at the financial piece from a cumulative cost basis. So look at this thing and how much we're spending overall, regardless of what it's part of. And we can filter on down to different programs or different portfolios or plan types, right? Etc. We talked about risk management, right? Looking at the risk summary and getting that information here. Looking at our issue summary, how those are coming along. And then just overall insights, for example, right? About these. And then we talked about trending, right? Just a health trend and see how we're doing on different types, on the state of the projects, the status, schedule health. Are we going up or down on those things? Effort health, issue health, etc. Once again, looking trending aggregately across the program. Now, if I go back to my list view and I go to drill into a particular project, because now we've been showing reporting up at a portfolio and a program level. Let me drill into a specific project, this data warehouse migration. And as I go through to that, I've got project details, which are basically giving me the current state of everything, whether it be the data and metadata, where I'm at in the life cycle or the stages or phases of the project, summaries of where we're at from a prioritization perspective, what other things we might be associated with as far as strategies or applications, etc. Being able to look at the current snapshot of where we are from a schedule perspective and how our progress, how we're doing on our financials, and how much of our budget is left, how we're doing on spending effort, and some of the trending and stuff that we talked about. Think about this as a kind of a living, breathing snapshot that you can get to for your data, and also provide updates in here as well. There's a financial plan that we can report on. So some of the financial data we talked about has both labor and non-labor categories available to us to basically report on. There's resource capacity planning in here on an individual project level that feeds into an overall capacity plan. And there's reporting around that, right? So basically I can look at the overall resource plan, the resource information, either from a reporting perspective, or I can basically come in and work with it transactionally in the actual resource capacity plan itself. There's the work plans where we execute our schedules and our backlogs and those types of things, right? And so we have, more waterfallish types of Gantt charts. We have more backlogs. We have issues and risks and change logs and those types of things within here. But there's reporting around all this as well that we can get to, okay? There is also the ability for us to have this be derived from connectors that we have to other tools. So for example, this one was actually built in OnePlan itself, but we could have connected to, say, Microsoft Project or to Smartsheet, right, or to Azure DevOps, and have that data pulled in on a routine basis to create what we see here in OnePlan that would roll up to the portfolio. Now, specific project reporting, if I look in here and I go look at the, say, the dashboard, the reporting we looked at before, these dashboards are now not at the portfolio or program level, but now I'm down very project specific level on this. So for this data warehouse migration, I can be looking at a plan summary on how we're doing on the different aspects of this particular project. I can be looking at a financial summary, which is project specific here. Same thing with the resource plan summary, right? Or maybe even a backlog summary, looking at how we're doing on the detailed items and the story points and things that we're working on within the backlogs in our Agile projects, right? And then even things like if we're reporting time, right? We can look at things like timesheet hours by task, et cetera, like that. So once again, a whole myriad of project-specific reporting that we give you to start with, but you could augment this with the things that you need for yourself. OnePlan has AI, and we also have insights. such that you can set up which insights that you'd like to be alerted to for your plan and for your schedule, things that require your attention, things that are overdue, like your schedule, your tasks, your approvals, things that you've been assigned that you haven't touched, maybe even plan compliance. There's even reporting from an individual status report basis. I've talked in the slides about having an individual status report that is manual each reporting period. What if we had the system create a status report each reporting period? Notice the history that's here, that's creating snapshots for trending. And then basically you can determine what's in this report. We've got header information, got schedule information, financial information, health KPIs, trends, and even place in here where you can type in narrative. And by the way, you can actually have Sophia help you by actually analyzing your plan and help you build that narrative by asking it to generate narrative. You see this rich text in here? These were generated by Sophia in here, okay? But the key is, oh, and also the associated items like tasks we're currently working on, active issues we're dealing with, all automatically populating into the status report. Once again, no manual effort except the narrative that you wanted to put in here in addition to the data that's being pulled from the system. And when you submit this each period, it then goes and is part of this. And we can either read them here within OnePlan, or we can put these out to other audiences via PDF, Word, or an email, okay? So once again, a lot of deep reporting. And I talked about all the aspects of strategic portfolio management. So not only we might want to see what other dependencies we have with other projects, but what about how it interrelates with everything else? Here, I'm looking at these associations in this visualizer we have in OnePlan, and this is available anywhere you are in the system. So now I'm taking a project-centric view on this, and I can see which key results this aligns back to in the strategies, and in turn, which objectives those key results are associated with. But I can also see that we have either a dependency or association with certain products that are being developed or updated, certain applications, and certain business capabilities. Once again, any one of these things could be off track, that could be putting me at risk, and I could very quickly from this visual put together and look at the data about why this thing's at risk and what might be amiss, and look at the details around that at any given point in time. So once again, these are interactive views and reports that we're working with at any given point in time. And this visualizer really takes complex associations and really brings it all to a head. We have the same types of reporting available to us from a resource perspective. So I showed you a resource plan briefly within an individual project, but as we look in here, right, and we go in and look at different plans, we can basically see we have generic and named individual resources, right? But we can also look and see, you know, at the aggregate, which projects these people are on, to what degree they're on, and I can look in terms of hours or full-time equivalents, what that means in terms of their commitment. Now, I've got an extreme case here in the demo environment where Daniel is being worked to death. But the idea, you can see the reason it is because we've got him assigned to so many projects within here. And I would say if you have this kind of visibility ongoing, in the likelihood of you over allocating him to this degree would be very, 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 very slim. But in the context of reporting on this, yes, we have our live views. Yes, these are updatable right from here, but we have resource dashboards that we can get to. Look at who our most overused or abused resources are, like Daniel, right? Look at how we fit within capacity and demand on a time phase basis. You know, we can look at, you know, resource plan, you know, details in there, right? Where we can say, okay, what projects and what resources are we spending across those over time? We got resource plan versus capacity to see where we are over under capacity at any given point in time. We have all these types of things in here we can look at. We can look at individual resource assignments if we want to, down to the individual resources that are assigned to these particular things, and look at that kind of information, as well as what we would call a work dashboard that gets us into the idea of how much work is actually being done within these different projects. And now I can see a map here to see which the biggest consumers of resources are in a very graphical way, but also drill down and say, what are the pieces in that, and just select there from that map and look at that particular element. You know, we also talked about the other pieces, right? We talked about strategy, intake, and ideas, right? So if we go up to the strategy area of OnePlan, you know, I'm not giving you the details of the functionality of that today because we really got a reporting and dashboard type of focus today. But as we go into the strategy piece, we have the ability to outline objectives and key results within our organization. And you can see here that, you know, we have objectives, we have some key results within those, which are tangible measures. But once again, we're going to say there's lists, boards, and roadmap views you can look at for your strategies, just like we have in the project portfolio. But we also have dashboards that are specific to the objectives themselves. So as I'm looking at a strategy, I want to communicate this to somebody in a report, maybe that's not hands-on working with data within OnePlan transactionally. They can look at the status of the whole objective portfolio. They can see how we're doing with progress with the objectives and which ones might be needing attention very quickly. We have the same thing at the next layer with the key results and more details in here on the tangible progress that we're making and the metrics that we have around those, as well as the overall progress that we might want to look at and see what the lagging performers are with the ones that we might want to pay additional attention to as we go on through. So once again, reporting focused on the strategy. And as ideas and requests come in for us to consider to put into the project portfolio, I can come in here at any given point in time and look at the things that are under review. I can look at the things that, are all ideas that are available to, things that have voting against them, things that have prioritization scores against them. And I can look at these at any given point in time, but there's reporting on this as well. So as I'm looking at this and somebody who's not hands-on transactionally within OnePlan working on the data, you can look at it here within OnePlan or just as the report in general. And I can see all the ideas that are in here. I have not only them categorized, but for example, and I've got bubbles that basically tell me on a benefits versus prioritization matrix, which ones are in here. The CRM one seems to be a big bubble here that's high on the benefit score and mid-range in the prioritization scores. Or I could say, show me all the compliance projects, and some of these are important. If we have some compliance or strategy ones that we have to do, maybe it's not very high in benefits, but it's something that we have to do, right? But the prioritization score is very high because it's strategic. I might even just focus on a variety of other things that I might want in here. Like I might say, just show me all the high priority ones that are in here rather than all of them. So once again, the ways to slice and dice on selecting or helping us select on what things to pursue. And I guess on the enterprise architecture elements, we have portfolios of elements, and you can choose to what degree you go here. That we have portfolios of enterprise or business architecture elements that are available to us within here. That may be a product portfolio, there might be a business capabilities portfolio, application portfolio, etc. And once again, dashboards and reporting around all this, right? We have, we also offer free trials and complimentary assistance. So if you do get a trial, don't be bashful about engaging with us. Wherever you're at in your investigative journey, we're happy to help. We have resources that are good at this stuff that can basically help you. Now, the full strategic portfolio management option or template is, if you want to do all the things that you saw here today, is the one that you should leverage. But we have a variety of different variations of templates out here that you can use. Then you can go to us for that. So take us up on the OnePlan trial and our assistance. It's free. We can help you with a roadmap workshop or discussion. No charge, so we can understand where you stand today and maybe give you an idea what it would take to get you into a solution like this based on where you're at. And because we're based on the Microsoft cloud and use Microsoft tools in many regards, you may own a good chunk of what you need to do this already. And if you're not even there yet, if you just want to see more, this was a very high-level demo focused on reporting, not on functionality necessarily. We're happy to schedule a personalized one-on-one demonstration with you addressing your specific needs. Just contact us at contact@oneplan.ai and we're happy to schedule that with you. Or research more about us at oneplan.ai. There's a lot of good resources out on our website. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, your attention, and your interest. We think of OnePlan coming together as that hub that brings everything together from different tool sets, different methodologies, different dimensions of project and portfolio management. We call that the power of one. So please do engage with us. Don't be bashful. You can either reach out to us to the general contact line, or if I can be of help to you, just reach out to me specifically. My email's here. You'll get a copy of these slides and a link to the recording so that you can share with others in the organization or review again what we've covered today. Thank you and have a great day.